Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a little after 8:30. I did notice the Starbucks line was despairingly long, but we'll probably have a few more people trickle in as the session goes on. But welcome. I'm Kerry Kroffe. I'm going to be moderating this session on open access mandates. So if you weren't expecting an open access mandate seminar, you are probably in the wrong room. Okay? Few logistics, housekeeping-wise. If you have cell phones, tweets, iPads, all of that kind of stuff, can you please just go ahead and silence those now, just so that the speakers aren't interrupted by any extra noises, emails, Facebook notifications, you name it, all of those wonderful intrusions we all have all day long. And also, although it was never in the print program, we did have Mike Stebbins originally scheduled to be in the seminar. Unfortunately, the President of the United States outranks me, and last week he had a last-minute meeting with the President of the United States scheduled for today. So I lost out. I apologize for that. Mike will be here, not for this session, but on the 29th in the open access update from OSTP. So those of you hoping to catch up with him, he will still be here for that. Okay? So just really quickly going through what we're going to be doing today. I'll be setting the stage for about 15 minutes, a quick overview of who I am, where I work, what I do, why I have interest in this, and then we'll jump right into the speakers who really are going to be giving you the content for today. We're looking at having the first two speakers spend about a half hour, depending on how long their talks are and how many questions people have after their talks. There's a refreshment break at 10 o'clock. We'll come back for one more talk, and then a wrap-up and any discussions that, or any topics that you'd like to go over in more detail. Okay. So IOP, as I said, I am a publisher with IOP Publishing. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Institute of Physics, which is a nonprofit, which makes me a Learned Society partner publisher. Effectively, what that means is we work with all sorts of different societies. So I'm on the partnership side as well as the society side, which means that all of our societies are going to have different views. Open access, some of them are very open to, some of them embrace it and love it, and some of them drive it and drive us. Others are incredibly resistant towards open access. And so as a publisher, we're having to deal with this notion of complete and total difference amongst all of our clients. It's a really fun line to walk because it gives you great exposure to all of the different issues out there and what each of the different fields will feel. What's particularly interesting in my field, we basically do physics, and in physics you'd be astonished at what differences people feel. Mathematics, for example, has very high resistance to open access, but high energy physics, for example, it basically publishes completely open access, if any of you are familiar with Scope 3. We have offices all over the world. I'm lucky I'm based in Washington, D.C., where a lot of the society folks are, but our main offices are in Bristol, UK. And just to give you a sense, we do publish journals, magazines, conference proceedings, books, and websites dedicated to different areas in publishing. As I said, more than half of our journals are published on a partner basis. Just a list of our number of partners here. The one in particular that I work on is the American Astronomical Society. They're the main partner that I focus on. Relatively large society. Was open access well before open access was a term. In fact, they made their content free ever since I began publishing. So I actually never learned anything other than open access to begin with, which is sort of interesting coming from the publishing side of things. To get a sense, I took a graph here from WarMap. This is a group that's based in the UK, Southampton University. And they self-register any mandates that are out there. So by no means is this complete. This is a self-certification, which means that of the list, it's likely to be smaller rather than larger. But you'll see that over the past decade, significant increases have been made in terms of institutions, programs, or funders which require some level of open access policy. That's a good thing in many ways. As we see research is beginning to be made available to the public, but it doesn't come without challenge. And some of the challenges, as I've experienced, First of all, as I said in physics, behaviors and expectations vary very widely across disciplines. And then when you add on top of that geographies, it becomes a multifaceted problem that most people have difficulty navigating. I would say publishers have difficulty navigating. And when you ask scholars and researchers to try and go through this minefield, this veritable minefield with potential consequences to their long-term reputation as a scholar, it becomes a sort of important thing to really pay attention to. This causes confusion amongst authors. I've had authors come to me before and say, well, I can't publish open access. If I do that, then I won't have any rights to my article. And that's just patently not true. And the problem is that most authors don't actually have the legal army that's required to understand all of the different facets of licensing. And honestly, most of them don't have the interest in doing that. Most of their interest lies in their research. I've never found an astronomer, in my case, who was more interested in telling me about his rights and his permissions and reusing than he was about communicating his science. And that's a challenge for us as publishers, because it's important for us to be able to convey information legally. And sometimes when our constituents aren't, are somewhat cavalier, we have to be a little careful in terms of what we do and how we support them. So education is part of that, and it's important to do. Some people talk about curtailing of academic freedom, and the notion that if they're being forced into publishing in an open access journal, then they're perhaps not publishing in the best journal for them, the most appropriate journal for them. Oftentimes this is a mistake. Oftentimes this is just something that the authors don't fully comprehend, going again back to their interest more in the research that they're conducting and not necessarily in the output and how it's disseminated. And again, going back to the inconsistent requirements across institutions, programs, funders, and how does someone walk all of that when you're funded by something such as NSF, or in the UK, RCUK, which has very specific requirements, but you're based at a research institution which has either contradictory requirements or additional requirements, and further, if you're then in a program which has different requirements. In astronomy, I've faced all three of those, where I have someone saying to me, I have to deposit my same article in 3 different places. Why am I taking on this administrative burden? And, I can certainly feel some sympathy for them, because, in a certain way, we're there to help them. We're out here to get scholarship out to the communities, and it shouldn't be we shouldn't be impeding that process. We should be empowering that process. I grabbed a quote on apathy that I really liked when it came to inserting content into digital repositories. And it comes from a survey where over 60% of authors said they would be more than willing to put their data into an institutional repository. And then if most of us will look at our institutional repository, 60% of the content that's published is not there. And this is because there's the difference between saying you're willing to do it, but then having the mechanisms put in place to actually allow them to do it easily, gracefully, seamlessly. And unfortunately, there really is a dearth of that at the moment. Some libraries have very active wings that take content in, pull it into the institutional repository, and make it available. They go out to faculty. But some institutions just don't have the manpower to make that happen. So it's truly important that when you're coming up with your own mandate, you ensure that you actually have the ability to execute against that mandate. Simply putting a mandate out there, it doesn't work on autopilot. Asking someone to do something, telling someone to do something, in fact, even providing teeth to a mandate without enforcement actually isn't very helpful and doesn't accomplish the end goal, which I believe is making the science more accessible. So, with that, don't have to listen to me talk anymore. Our first speaker is going to be Maria, and so let me get to her bio page so I don't miss anything. So Maria Bond is a senior lecturer at the Graduate School of Library and Information Science at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where she teaches courses on the role of libraries in scholar communication and publishing. Most recently, Maria served as the Associate University Librarian for Publishing at the University of Michigan Library, with responsible for publishing and scholarly communications initiatives, including University of Michigan Press, the Scholarly Publishing Office, the Institutional Repository, known as Deep Blue, the Copyright Office, and the Text Creation Partnership. Maria has been an assistant professor of English at Albing College and also taught at Sichuan International Studies University in Chongqing, China. She received a bachelor's degree from the University of Rochester, a master's and doctoral degrees in American literature from SUNY Buffalo, and a master's in information library science from the University of Michigan. Maria.